Craig, what are you watching? What's on your radar?
Yeah, it's a bit of a quiet overnight news session, which is good because the weekend kind of filled us up with plenty of news, and yesterday was kind of a wild day. So I don't know, usually Wednesdays are hump days, but today to me feels like a hump day, just kind of maybe a quieter session. In the back half this week, we have a ton of data coming, right? We get ADP tomorrow, services, ISMs, and then we get claims on Thursday, non-farm payrolls on Friday. So I think the back half of this week is going to be chock full of interesting stuff to think about on the pace of the economy. But today a little bit quiet. The European PMIs that came out overnight were a little bit softer, and I just saw that German CPI came in a little bit weaker than expected, and so dollar euro is a bit stronger. So we'll have to keep an eye on those currencies throughout the day too. And the bond market, particularly at the long end, remains a little bit weak. We talked about this yesterday. We've been talking about it for weeks on the show. It's like, the pace of the economy globally is a little bit more subdued, certainly away from the AI CapEx, but long end yields continue to rise, right? We're seeing that in Japan, we've been seeing that in Germany, and similarly here in the US. And you have plenty of calls on capital for deficit spending in Japan and Europe and the US and China, the AI CapEx story. So the long end for being particularly weak, I think is interesting too. But it's a rate of change thing. I think we talked about this yesterday, either it's the morning or the afternoon, just when bonds are subdued, either way, I think equity markets don't really care too much about what yields are doing. It's when the pace of yield moves start to accelerate in either direction, I think people will start to wake up and notice. So I don't know. Today seems like a little bit more of a calm day. I'm sure I'll eat my words by 4 o'clock. But
I know. I think you just guaranteed.
Yeah,
that might not be the case. Blake, what are you watching? And I wonder if did anything stand out to you yesterday? I mean, there was an awful lot going on, but I don't know. There seems to be. I think Craig's right. People feel like, I don't know, did you get a feel that where sentiment is, or you're getting a clear read on things? It seemed like it was kind of a little bit messy.
Before we kicked off the show, we were talking about how sloppy the markets were, to kick off the year. And I saw it, since I tend to be centric or currency centric, excuse me. I saw it a lot in a lot of the dollar flows that came through the market, to kick off the new trading year. We saw the dollar index, really take off, and the euro came under pressure, but it quickly got swooped up after the London fix. As soon as London was, checking out for the session, we saw a big reversal. And, whenever you see markets that act like that, where it's sloppy or it gets like really overextended in one direction, I love it personally because it catches traders off, off kilter, if you will. They get all aggressive thinking, oh, here we go. And then you get this big reversal, and then you get a sloppy move in the other direction. And I saw a lot of that, at least in the currency market. And everything else, as Craig said, we're kind of subdued as we're looking towards this week. Maggie, you also mentioned about copper, and when copper did reach all-time highs, one of the scary things though about copper and what we've seen in recent months, and I will pull up the chart just so I have it in front of my person here, is what we've seen in recent months is when we do rally to new all-time highs, it gets slapped back down again, and you can see it on a long-term basis. This is actually a weekly chart. You can see going back all the way back to 2003. This is a rising trend line. So what that means is when you have a rising trend line like that, as they stretch into new all-time highs, you have to just be a little bit more careful chasing it. It's more of a buy dip type of strategy. But I noticed that when you brought it up this morning, I took a good look at this chart because I hadn't looked at copper closely on a longer term basis in quite some time. And my trend line was here, and I'm like, oh yeah, here we are. We're nearing that rising trend line again, which, again, those are the types of things that make me skeptical about chasing the markets in one direction or another.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're talking about when we mean sloppy, right? Like if you got in on that trade, fantastic, but I think more from a risk management point of view, Craig, and I think you brought this up really early yesterday. Just be careful if you see moves like this. And by the way, on copper, I got something in my inbox saying, keep calm on copper and just be careful. Keep a cool head. There's a lot of FOMO piggybacking on precious metals. So if that's what's driving it, as opposed to some really strong fundamentals, you just have to treat it a little differently. And Craig, I think you said that early yesterday and really set the tone for what it seems like we're dealing with in the first part of the week here.
Yeah, look, I think you had some, reactions to the Venezuelan news that were, very much more aggressive than they quote unquote should be, right? You had oil services names up to, 8-9% overnight in that session, and even closing out the day yesterday up 6-7%. The timeline to bringing back capacity and production in Venezuela is going to be months, if not years, right? And so to price all that in one day feels a little bit aggressive. And we saw plenty of dispersion yesterday too, which I think is indicative of, maybe sloppy is the wrong word, but it was, different people trying to chase different things. We had utilities down 2%, biotechs were down 2% yesterday, staples and healthcare were weak. And so you had this weird pro-cyclical rotation going on in the tape after a weaker than expected ISM number. So again, it was hard to really paint a consistent narrative throughout the day and cross asset wise. I think that the best thing to think about was money was coming in. It's the beginning of the year. People are putting positions on, and sometimes to Blake's point, you get moves that are exacerbated in one direction that need to check back to some reality. I think we'll see that kind of as the week progresses.
Well, as far as silver goes, I am a technician at heart. It's one of the things that I think as a trader, as you dip your toe into the trading environment, 30 years ago, the first thing I learned was how to read Fibonacci's. And one thing I learned is the 618 retracement is what we call the golden fib. And you can see this is the red Fibonacci ratio that you see here. So if you take the peak, the spike that we got to the sell-off, the recent lows, you notice how we're just consolidating. Yesterday we were below it, and now we're consolidating around that big red level. That's a 618 retracement. It's a very natural retracement. It's a very psychological retracement for asset classes to get to. So naturally, I would be cautious here looking at that as well. But what you're talking about going into the gold-silver ratio, and let me pull that up really quick, and let's grab it real quick. Here's the gold silver ratio, which this is, if people really start feeling more constructive on gold over silver, you're going to see it pop up here in the gold silver ratio. So if we see the gold silver ratio actually breaking back above 61.12, this would be the level that I would be most concerned with. We see us break back above there. And that's where gold starts outperforming silver. And I think that would be my cue as a trader to be long gold, short silver.
And Matt, just from a shorter term timing perspective on gold and silver, you need to keep in mind that Goldman Sachs has these commodities indices that tons of capital are tied to. They do an annual rebalancing that starts on the 8th and typically lasts for about 5 days. Gold and silver are decent for sale. So more so on a contract basis for silver as a percentage of the total market than for gold, but just worth noting from a timing perspective, sometimes you get, some of that selling pressure on these annual rebalances, and given the outperformance from gold and silver last year, the weights in those indices kind of got over their skis. And so now there's a little bit of a reconstitution to lower the weights for both of those commodities. And so that typically takes place over a 5-day period starting on the 8th. And there's a decent bit of capital in the commodities indices, commodity sphere that is tied into those indices on a passive perspective. So might see some selling. So if we get some selling from the 8th through the middle of next week, that could be part of the reason. That could be opportunity to maybe get back into some loans.
Yeah, that's a great flag.
I think you guys hit on a lot of great themes. And one of the things that I'm struggling with is the fact that we have this market that is really extremely precariously perched in terms of those top 10 stocks are just such a large portion of the index. And when I look at that and I think about it and people try to tell me it's not a bubble, I'm just going to call BS on that. This is a bubble. Those stocks are extremely dangerous. The real question to me is, can we get a correction in those stocks without it bringing down the entire market? Can we get the indexes going sideways? And, can we have a NVIDIA that corrects a third or a half, which I know sounds extreme, but when you look back at these tech stocks over time, they do this all the time. They have corrections of 30, 40, 50%. 2022, this happened. And I'm just kind of shocked at the fact that people are so complacent about the risks in the S&P 500, how concentrated those top 10 stocks are. And one of the things that I'm talking about a lot is the fact that if you go back and look at the dot-com bubble bursting, you'll see that although those tech stocks got absolutely hammered in 2000 in March, a lot of other stocks were up huge. I was chatting with a buddy that was running a big hedge fund, and he told me, he says, yeah, we were up 30% in 2000, and we weren't short a single stock. And I was like, you were up 30%? Like, how does that work, right? And so I went and looked at the returns of the different subsectors within the S&P 500, and Maggie, I was shocked. Like, yeah, like S&P Tech was down 60-odd%, but food staples were up 40. Utilities were up 30. Insurance was up 25. Transports were up 25. There was a lot of stocks that did extraordinarily well in this kind of period when the dot-com bubble was bursting. And so one of the things that I've been talking about and just telling people is that they have to focus a little bit more on no longer owning the index and picking different subsectors. And I know everyone always says this will be the year for active management, but I feel like Lucy with her Charlie Brown with football with Lucy, but I really think this time it is going to be the time when active management will do extraordinarily well. And I think it's going to actually be very easy. All you're going to have to do is avoid those, there's AI in the top 10 stocks that are just stupidly priced and due for a big correction.
Yeah, I wonder, so I'm just going to mention a comment in the chat, because I also have been hearing that, I'm sure you have as well, Craig, that, this sort of set and forget, passive, chuck it in, just own the index is really starting to be sort of a dangerous way to operate if you are not properly diversified. Craig, that was a great discussion.
Yeah, Kevin's great. He's got a really, excellent product, and he's been around for a long time. He's seen a lot of cycles. And so I think, I think doing homework, deep dives, understanding companies, understanding industries is going to be of paramount importance in the next year. And I think, thankfully for futures traders, we're going to have some single stock futures coming at some point this year too. So that's going to be a big benefit for futures traders, finding names that are, you could buy and sell based on some of the more thematic themes and under the hood, and not having to necessarily focus, daily on whether or not ES is going to be up or down.